This August 9th meeting of the Board of Education is now called to order. I welcome everyone present. The Wichita Public Schools will be the district of choice in our region where all students and staff are empowered to dream, believe, and achieve. I am pleased that you've taken the time to join us, and just a special note to our staff and parents watching tonight's meeting. We have moved the issue that you are probably tuned in to listen to tonight as to the front of the meeting, so we will hopefully get you an answer as soon as possible. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We're also pleased to announce that we have our live JROTC flag presentation today from Pleasant Valley Middle School. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Forward, march. March, march. Colors, both. Left, face. Present, arms. Sir, Pleasant Valley Middle School request to post the colors.
Please post the colors.
Thank you, sir. Order, arms, post. Post. Present, arms. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, arms, post. Outward, face, forward, march.
Thank you, everyone.
Stand.
That
Stand. Can I say something, Mike?
yes, Cheryl.
Yeah, I apologize. My thing isn't working to be able to ring in. I don't know what the problem is.
Okay.
But I just wanted to thank the Pleasant Valley JROTC, not only for being the first that we've had here in a year and a half, which is wonderful, but they were the very first school that presented the colors at our meeting 25 years ago. So for 25 years, we've had our JROTC kids presenting our colors, and I think it's wonderful that we have them back again tonight. So I just wanted to thank them very, very much.
And I just wanted to announce that the flag guard was Daisy Palmerin. The American flag holder was J.B. Flores. The Kansas flag holder was Alejandro Lopez. The Kansas guard was Leah Lopez. And so, again, we thank them for coming. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Next item under reports, good news.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Thompson. I know I speak for an audience full of colleagues in saying how good it is to see students back at our board meeting.
Yes.
I cannot wait for Wednesday when our 6th, 9th, and 10th graders come back for orientation, and Thursday to see 50,000 kids come back to our schools in a safe manner. So it was really awesome to see the young people here tonight. I look forward to bringing you student-oriented good news as we go through the school year. But tonight we have an opportunity to celebrate 3 good news items that honor the people who support our students. So I am pleased with our very first item to invite Mr. Kelly Bielefeld and an awesome team of educators forward. We were thrilled that the Wichita Public Schools was named by KSDE Commissioner Randy Watson as a recipient of the Copper Star Awards in recognition of our use and incorporation of individual plans of study. So we wanted to celebrate that accomplishment since that's so important to our goal number 3 in the strategic plan. So I'm going to step aside, put my mask back on, and turn the podium over to Kelly.
Thank you, Wendy. Good evening. I'm Kelly Bielefeld, Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, and I have an awesome team here that I'm going to introduce here in just a second as I talk about the award we won from KSDE for individual plans of study. So thank you for allowing us to take some time to celebrate this exciting award that we received for the 1920 school year. So because of the pandemic, KSD is a little late in presenting some of these awards. So a few years ago, KSD started the STAR recognition program. Some of the awards that they honor come automatically based on post-secondary effectiveness rate, state assessment scores, and graduation rate. But other awards come through an application process. So that's for civic engagement, for kindergarten readiness, and for things like individualized plans of study. So we're excited to announce that Wichita has received the Copper Star Award for the 2020 school year for individualized plans of study. This, of course, has been a team effort led by Laura Barker, who's our district coordinator for all things IPS and Zello. 3 years ago, through our Perkins grant, we chose to fund a supplemental position for every middle and high school to help plan and coordinate lesson delivery at all of our secondary schools. 2 of these coordinators have joined us tonight, Kelly Loudermilk, who was the IPS coordinator at Wilbur Middle School last year, and Amy Alvarez from the Wichita Alternative School at Chester Lewis. Both Kelly and Amy have been leaders among coordinators. Kelly created a website that is very well organized and full of the resources that we use to have our students complete. And Amy Alvarez, over the past year, served on a regional IPS task force group that was coordinated through KSDE. So both leaders within the district and across the state. If you are unaware of what IPS means to our students, we brought with us a quick flyer to share some data. You can see that starting in 6th grade, all of our students are active on Zello. Some of the activities they do through this are saving their careers, completing interest inventories, learning style surveys, and researching both careers and colleges. This begins at an exploratory level at middle school and becomes a crystallized plan as students move closer to graduation. Every student having a plan, in our opinion, is the linchpin to becoming future ready. Without a plan, students, especially first-generation college students, might miss critical steps along the process. The Zello platform, which we use to deliver the planning content and to assist students in saving their plans, reported to us that the average time nationally for a student to be logged in is typically around 7 minutes. Last year in Wichita, our average time for a student logged in was double that at 15 minutes. We believe both students and teachers value this planning process, which creates a much more relevant framework for students to learn rigorous content. This year, we have exciting goals to take our IPS process even further and expand it. Coming soon, we'll have a parent portal, which allows every parent to log in and see what their student has saved for their careers and for their post-secondary plans. We also will begin using the 4-year course planner, which allows students to map out their entire high school plan to ensure they're on track to reach their goals. These 4-year plans, of course, can be changed and will be changed as students navigate high school, but it should alleviate the junior or senior regretting not taking certain prerequisite classes as a freshman or sophomore because they're unaware of the planning process. There will be much more to come on IPS in our district, but we are excited to celebrate being only one of 9 districts across the state of Kansas who received any recognition at this level. Thank you to my team for all their hard work, and we hope to be back next year or sometime soon with a gold star as we continue to implement the IPS process. Thank you.
Just one moment. Ernestine?
I had someone about a week or 2 ago at a local meeting say to me, well, I think it's time we brought back VOTEC. Would you please explain how that this is that in stars?
Yes.
Would you please refer to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, one of the things that, we still call it VOTEC funding, the funding that we get from the state. the 34 fund. Through our CTE classes, though, the legislature and the State Board of Ed have been very intentional about gearing us toward high-demand, high-wage occupations. So it isn't home ec anymore. It's culinary arts. It's fashion apparel and interior design. We are helping students to become not just good at those skills, but able to make a living off of those skills if they go through the pathway and complete it. So, you know, we have full shop classes, we have full welding classes, we have automotive classes. You know, VOTEC is probably booming, as most high school principals would tell you, but I don't know that we do a great job of celebrating it and sharing that message with everybody. Dr.
Well-
Thompson and we met in May and June about creating a kind of a specific marketing plan about that to share that
Well,
story.
like if a student, parent wants a student to take woodworking, that is a part of a career path. What career path might that lead to, for example?
Well, for us, that would be the construction pathway, and which is, of course, high demand and high wage. Each of our high schools tailors it a little differently.
Uh-huh.
You could get a HVAC certification at South High. That's the only place that you can get that. Where, you know, at West High, we have the same kind of classes, but, you know, they'll build sheds that they sell, honestly, at the end of the season when they get done building it. So it's tailored a little bit, you know, some of it's based on teacher certification and the teacher expertise, but with some of our partnerships with WSU Tech, we're allowed to do a lot of dual credit and have a lot more opportunities for kids when it comes to that too.
So we are really teaching VOTEC
Yes,
in the stars, in spectacular rainbows and stars. Okay.
yes, and I think, you know, coming from a smaller district, when you see our facilities, smaller districts do not have the facilities that we have and the teaching expertise that we have when it comes to this. So
Thank you. I hope that lady is watching tonight.
me too. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's not very often that I get to celebrate the people that I have the honor of working with who prefer to be behind the cameras and ask them to come out in front of the camera. I'm not sure I told them I was going to do this, but I am going to ask them to come forward and stand to my left while I share this next item of good news with you. So, gang, you know who you are. And I would say that Jennifer and Michael, back in the production booth, Michael's shaking his head, they have jobs to do immediately, so they're going to stay back there and they will wave as we honor them. So this summer we had the opportunity to present 2 presentations to the National School Public Relations Association, which is an international organization of folks that do the work that we do to support our students and our staff. And part of the reason we had the opportunity and were selected to do that is that for the last 2 years, we have been honored with 15 national awards, plus 2 of the top honors the organization bestows upon school districts for the quality and creativity of the communication work that our team does to support the Wichita Public Schools. And that includes projects that represent branding and imaging work for our school district. The collaboration we have with Addie and Susan Willis and the finance team on the finance publication, various infographics, our website, which is a rock and an anchor of the school district, marketing publications to recruit kindergartners, to support Showcase, to manage and support crisis communications, such as the last 18 months of our communication work as we've been dealing with COVID, social media, in-house video production, and a number of other project areas. You couldn't ask for a better, more focused, more caring and compassionate group of communicators to do work behind the scenes to support all of you, to support everyone in the audience, and to support the teachers and students in our schools. So I want to take the opportunity to honor them by letting you know their names so you can say thank you to them. Maria Curry is one of the newest additions to our team. As you may know, we have now a Spanish language Facebook page that just continues to gain steam and is a great collaborative opportunity with our Spanish-speaking community. When you hear the district's Spanish voice, you hear Maria Curry. Maria Loving is our social media, English language social media specialist and manages our website as well. She is always hopping and is out and about in our district doing great work to tell the story. She is also our live tweeter. So for those of you who follow board meetings on the district's live tweet stream, that's Maria's work. Chelsea Mader is really the boss of all of us. Chelsea is our glue. She works on employee relations. She works with our volunteers. Chelsea has experience in several departments in the district, and we're fortunate that she chose to be part of our team. Kayla Pennick is our graphic artist, so all of the really awesome branding that you see is by Kayla's hand. She is extraordinary, and we are so fortunate to have her. Susie Finn is our manager of, gosh, she does everything, so she leads our marketing work. She leads our work with partners. She's done some really awesome work communicating with our frontline specialists throughout the district to make sure that the people that are answering phones for our patrons have the information they need and the support they need. I saved Susan as part of this crew for last because Susan and I have been doing this work together for 20 years. And Susan is our news and media relations manager and is simply, I can't say enough about her. She is remarkable. She knows everything. She knows everyone. And she uses that to the best of her ability to support our district's work. And then last but not least, Jennifer Bellinger-Sipes. Wave, Jennifer. And Michael Smith. He sort of waved up there. Our two producer directors and keep WPS TV online and do all of the amazing video production work, including the super cool opening ceremony that I hope you all had a chance to watch last week. That was talent at their hand. And Ashley Inklar is the only one of our team that's not here. Ashley is our cable operator. So she takes care of a lot of the behind-the-scenes technical work and deals with a lot of the slides and other still productions that are part of WPS TV. So we are honored to be recognized nationally and internationally for our work, but more importantly, honored to have this group of collaborators doing great work on behalf of the district. So, team, thank you. Now you can go back and not be in front of the camera.
We thank you for everything you do for the district, and we're honored to be on your team as well.
So last but not least, I'm going to invite two friends down. No pun intended, Jeff Friend from Robinson. That was bad. And Fabian Armendariz from our operations division at the School Service Center. While these two are coming down, those of you who are active on social media and in community spaces know that both Fabian and Jeff are true advocates for all of our school districts' populations. It does not matter about race, gender orientation, language, ethnicity, or anything of the sort. They are both in it for all kids and all staff. And this summer, they carried the torch for the Wichita Public Schools and were recognized as Diversity and Inclusion Award winners from the Wichita Business Journal. This is their 7th annual Diversity and Inclusion Awards program. And I think the luncheon is coming up later this week, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll have a chance to celebrate them on a community stage. But we are so honored to have these two fighting for our kids and fighting for what's right for our kids. And we wanted to take the opportunity to honor them in front of you and let you know what our community sees, which is that they demonstrate respect and inclusive treatment of others, advocacy for underrepresented groups, and a commitment to the advancement of cultural diversity. So we're fortunate to have these gentlemen on our team, and I hope you will join me in congratulating them for this honor. Either of you want to add anything? Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be back with a full slate of good news, and I think we had 3 really terrific items to celebrate the people that do great work for our kids. So thank you both for being here, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Wendy. And I agree, 3 great good news items tonight. Patrick, next item, please.
Next item, under reports, Service Employees International.
Mr. Esau Freeman. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. President Reeser, Dr. Thompson, and board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. And first of all, I want to say thank you from the employees for this year's contract, and I think that many of them feel heard and that you do appreciate them and their efforts. So a heartfelt thank you from all of us. Secondly, I would like to address what is probably on the minds of many of the workers, many of the parents, students, and those of you who sit on the board: masks. The only way to ensure that no harm is done while engaging in the in-person learning process during the COVID-19 pandemic is to require masks and continue to contact trace infections and quarantine those who have been infected. And while a good number of us have been vaccinated, a rather large portion of the school population cannot be. Therefore, the only way to protect those who cannot or have not vaccinated is to require a mask regardless of your vaccination status. I understand this is not a popular idea. I personally do not prefer to wear a mask. I mean, why would I want to cover up this pretty face? However, most of us noticed last year a reduction in colds and flus, and we even watched this spring as mask wearing increased and infections rate went down. During those periods, we were under an unpopular mandate that succeeded in what it was meant to do. I'm sorry, but strongly suggesting is simply not enough. Ask any college professor what happens to their attendance when they strongly suggest that their students attend. Probably the same thing will happen if you continue to strongly suggest that people wear masks, except for the attendance may be reduced due to infection rates. Most of our negotiated agreements have a professional dress requirement, and it simply says that all employees are required to adhere to dress requirements established for the specific work group, i.e., required uniform, safety glasses, and other personal protective equipment. These uncomfortable and cumbersome masks are safety equipment for students and the workers and all of their families. You will get some resistance, but most of us are waiting for the grown-ups in the room to lead and do the right thing. So I encourage you to require masks for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And I would just remind the audience that we will be having a lot of speakers with strong opinions for and against various issues tonight. So we would just ask you to hold applause and hold any kind of public demonstration at this time so we can conduct the meeting in a meaningful way. I appreciate you hearing me out on that. Mr. Clerk, the next item, please.
Next item, under reports, United Teachers of Wichita.
Mr. Brent Lewis.
President Reeser, Dr. Thompson, members of the board, we recognize the difficult position you are in. Dealing with a global pandemic is already a highly unusual, unpredictable, and exhausting situation, which is only made worse by the skepticism of some in our community of safety precautions recommended by health experts. We are professional educators. We have a simple expectation that as conditions and recommendations change, We do what the public health experts and medical community deem necessary for us to remain in the classroom and keep our students and staff safe. Now, 2 months from now, or any time conditions have changed significantly down the road, we want this to be true. We want to be in our classrooms, and we want everyone to be as safe as possible. Now, a good majority of our USD 259 staff have received the COVID vaccination. We are doing our part in fighting this pandemic. We need the rest of our staff who are eligible for the vaccine to get it. And we really need our community to step up and get the vaccine too. We want our community to stay healthy and to avoid disruptions like quarantines or shutdowns in our schools to the greatest extent possible. Now, on another note, we are pleased by the progress we are currently making with district administration to address some of the additional COVID-related workload issues and concerns we have for our staff as we anticipate another difficult year ahead. And finally, we are currently conducting our contract ratification vote, which will go through the end of the day on Wednesday. We look forward to announcing the results at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Patrick, next item, please.
Next item, public communications.
Our first speaker tonight is Miss Jane Burns. Ms. Burns, you have 3 minutes, and there will be a timer going up in the corner of the screen. And since we do have quite a few speakers tonight, I encourage you to stick to your 3 minutes.
For sure, I promise. And for something entirely different. My name is Jane Burns. I'm a grandma, a registered dietitian, a lecturer at a local university, and a concerned citizen who's followed transportation health and safety issues for years. All of these compel me to talk about transportation around schools. I advocate for wellness, which is proactive, of course, to avoid illness, but also to enable strength and vigor and clear thinking. Wellness is hugely benefited throughout a lifetime by the practice of physical activity on a routine, frequent basis. Me and my siblings, we were lucky enough to walk to school in the North End here, along safe sidewalks that are still there. My kids and some grandchildren are still walking to College Hill, Elementary, Robinson, and East High. These schools all had, and still have mostly, sidewalks to start and end the school day with routine, frequent outdoor walking. My request to you today is for the health and also safety of Wichita school children, K through 12. As your Safe Routes to School handout details, active walking and biking to school can benefit school children now and for their entire healthful lifetime. Unfortunately, starting in 2008, now there are a few visible crosswalks around most Wichita schools. That's an immense hazard from vehicles. Kids cannot be healthy if they are not safe. I've never found statistics on students struck by vehicles around Wichita schools, and the time I witnessed it, I never found any public information about it. My urgent request to you today is to ask for you all to ask the city of Wichita to paint crosswalks around every school in Wichita as a bright yellow safety signal to vehicle drivers to share the streets with our young ones, plus their families, their neighbors. Our children cannot be healthy if they are not safe. And I can't resist one more quick suggestion while I'm here about kids' asthma that's increased dramatically, at least nationally. which is exacerbated by pollution from fossil fuel vehicles. I hear that you, the school board, can add an addendum to the new contract for first students school buses to ask for electric school buses versus gas-powered buses. I hear that first student is widely experienced in e-school buses, from writing the grants to obtaining the buses. Thank you for all you do, good folks, for the health and safety of our children.
Thank you, Mrs. Burns. Our next speaker is Stephanie Rosendahl. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak for recommendations for continued, optional, not mandatory masks on any future Board of Education voting. I am speaking to you as a speech-language pathologist, as a concerned parent entering our son into kindergarten for the first time in this district. I believe that masks should be recommended, but not ever considered mandatory. I believe the parents have the right to choose the masking status of their own child. This holds especially true in the pre-K to 4th grade children's population. Masks hide children's lips and muffle their speech. Mask wearing makes it harder for young children to develop linguistic skills, prevents children from hearing impairments, from lip reading. Children are unable to rely on facial cues. Teachers and students of all ages are more likely to misinterpret one another. This is particularly a problem with children on the autism spectrum, cultural diverse, or with children with learning or developmental disabilities. Wearing masks is not a one-size-fits-all mandate or solution when it comes to our children. How are children supposed to develop the social skills when they can't see each other's face? We are supposed to do no harm, but we do not currently understand the full sacrifice for children's phonological growth when wearing a mask. I'm speaking to you as a speech pathologist. This youthful population frequently touches and pulls at their face, slobbering in the mask, touching their face. And more often than not, when they wear this mask, it exposes them to more germs in that youthful population. I have seen it over and over. The true facts on the data describe how low levels of harm for children are acquiring COVID. It is not only not medically safe, but psychologically and developmentally, linguistically inappropriate for children to wear masks. Please let the parents decide their own comfort level for their own children and make masks continuously optional, not mandatory. I thank you for your time as a speech pathologist and parent.
Thank you. Again, I would ask that there be no outbursts during the comments. Thank you, Ms. Rosenthal. And our next speaker is Scott Rosendahl.
Good evening. Thank you to the board for allowing me the chance to voice my concerns regarding the parent-student freedom to choose if a mask is medically appropriate or necessary for them. Notably, each student has individual sovereignty, and health considerations should be made individually with their trusted medical professional, not with collective oversight. When we had enrolled our child in USD 259 school, we did so with an understanding of mask choice, and were against any form of mandate that would stifle children's growth, development, or affect their health. It is of our belief that parents have autonomy when caring for their children. Every family has the fundamental right to make the decision if a mask would provide benefit or be detrimental to their health. We make decisions regarding their health and safety multiple times every day. Aligned with the doctor-patient relationship, each family has the right to choose under our God-given freedoms and our own unique understanding of how this virus affects children. This approach should guide our decisions and form policy that recognizes each student as a sovereign, unique, and deserving of specialized care. We, like many families, have come from no masks on any children at preschool or playing in social situations with positive outcomes as we follow manageable and reasonable rules. Focusing on daily personal responsibilities to encourage children socially, but limit contact with vulnerable people. JAMA Pediatrics has also indicated the detriment masks cause to children through hypercapnia and the stress created in children's bodies, manifesting as depression and anxiety. We have seen children take their lives, become dejected, and lose the most important thing we have collectively, hope, all for a minimal risk. Ultimately, schools have two jobs. That is to teach children how to learn and to protect them from losing their civil liberties. Not how to think, not what to put in or on our children's bodies, but to give parents, in strong collaboration with their trusted healthcare provider, a plan for their children's success and health. It is with great respect that I ask you to provide parents with the liberty to choose, with professional guidance, whether a mask is the right choice for them, and the freedom to reach their potential as a well-adjusted citizen of this all-American city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Next speaker is Katie Grover.
Good evening, President Reeser, Dr. Thompson, and members of the board. My name is Katie Grover, and I have 2 children attending Wichita Public Schools. I recently sent you all an email, and I thanked you for your service. I will now add, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that all levels of government have failed to take an action to protect the public, especially our children, and that you are left to make this decision. I'm sorry that our state government has taken away your ability to offer alternative learning opportunities like My School Remote, which was of great benefit to my children last year. It is beyond regretful that you are all in this position. So again, I'm sorry. But me being sorry and recognizing that this is regrettable doesn't change the fact that you have a decision to make. No, I am not a healthcare provider, a scientist, a mental health expert, a member of the CDC or American Academy of Pediatrics, or a hospital administrator. You have heard from these folks. They have published mountains of data, shared the statistics, and made clear their guidance. I am a marketer, and as a marketing professional, I am intimately aware the remarkable power words yield. Words matter. So when people hear the words strongly recommend, their reaction and subsequent action can and will be distinctly different than if they hear the words require, mandate, or universal. Dentists strongly recommend everyone floss every day. For months, leaders have strongly recommended that everyone over the age of 12 become vaccinated against COVID-19. Yet here we are. Simply put, strongly recommend is not good enough. I am also a mom. And the 2 pieces of my heart are enrolled in your schools. My husband and I have done everything in our power to keep them safe since the beginning of the pandemic, and now we look to you to do the same. Our children cannot be vaccinated. Every child you empower to dream, believe, and achieve under the age of 12 cannot be vaccinated. Last year, when there was no vaccine available to anyone, USD 259 successfully implemented in-person learning, as did schools around the world, all while wearing masks. This is not new. It can be and has been done. What hasn't changed is that there's still no vaccine for tens of thousands of your students. Without enforcement, without a requirement, You are putting our children and our community at risk for bullying, at risk for contracting a serious illness, at risk for missing out on critical education because teachers and students are in quarantine or worse, at risk for infecting immunocompromised family members. I'm still not a medical professional, and I don't have to be one to remind you that masking is most effective when everyone has one on their face. Level the playing field. When the vaccine becomes available to all school-aged children and they have time to be fully vaccinated, reconvene to reconsider your protocols. Until then, I implore you, institute universal masking in our schools, give our kids a chance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Grover. Our next speaker is Dr. Vanessa Lopez.
Good evening, President Reeser and Superintendent Alicia Thompson. My name is Dr. Vanessa Lopez, and I'm a local pediatrician here in Wichita. My husband is a teacher for the USD 259 district, and I also have 4 children enrolled in the Wichita Public School System. You know, the last several months, we have seen an increasing rate of respiratory illnesses in our community. Never in my years as a practicing pediatrician have we seen as many cases as RSV bronchiolitis in the community. School is right around the corner, and the concern is without masking, we are definitely going to see a large number of other respiratory illnesses comorbid with COVID as well.
Dr. Lopez, I'm going to have you speak just a little closer to the
Oh,
mic. Yes.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
So given that school is right around the corner, I do suspect we are going to see a lot of other respiratory comorbid infections with what we've already seen this summer. Masking has shown to be effective in regards to reducing these illnesses, especially because our kids cannot be vaccinated. I know that the kids have done a great job. As a mother, not only as a pediatrician, I did have low expectations for my children, my first and second grader, keeping their mask on, but I was surprised. And so I know they can do it, and I know it's effective in preventing spread of disease. So I strongly encourage that we mandate masking for all students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Our next speaker is Dr. Paul Turan. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, Dr. Thompson, Board President Reeser and Board of Education. As a WPS parent and pediatric hospitalist caring for children with serious illness from COVID-19 here in Wichita, I urge you to follow the advice from the experts and adopt a universal mask policy. A strong recommendation is not enough. Without these control measures and masking, COVID-19 outbreaks in our schools are inevitable and will lead to interruptions in education, school activities, and the supports that many students and families rely on. The Delta variant is serious and is spreading rapidly. Local and regional hospitals are seeing a steep rise in patients, including children with serious illness from COVID-19. Personally, I have treated more patients, more kids with COVID-19 last week than at any week during this pandemic so far. This is not unique to Wichita. Most regional children's hospitals are reporting the same. Based on what I've seen, I'm more concerned for the health of my own children this year, especially as control measures from last year are not continued. The Delta variant is more contagious than earlier variants. Individuals who have been vaccinated have become ill with the Delta variant and transmit the disease to others. Thankfully, the vaccine provides protection against the variant and greatly decreases the risk of severe illness, hospitalization, and death. But most kids don't have access to those vaccines yet. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the U.S. Department of Education, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the Kansas COVID Work Group for Kids, and other local health professionals fighting COVID-19 all recommend that all students, staff, and visitors in K through 12 schools should wear masks when indoors, regardless of vaccination status. These are not recommendations that leaders strongly recommend masks. They are recommending that leaders implement masking requirements. Other Kansas school districts have adopted masking requirements and have been supported and applauded by their communities. In fact, of the 7 largest districts in the state of Kansas, Wichita is the only one currently without a mask requirement heading into this year. My children will continue to wear masks this year, but we need a collective effort that includes high vaccination rates, universal masking, and other control measures to protect our kids and allow us to move forward. Unfortunately, other local officials have not established policies to protect children during this time. So again, a strong recommendation is not enough. Please create a mask requirement. You know, we did not expect to be here, and I do look forward to when we can focus our efforts elsewhere. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Tran. Next speaker is Dr. Rebecca Reddy. Welcome, Dr. Reddy.
Hello, and thank you, President Reeser, Superintendent Thompson, and all the board members for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rebecca Reddy. I am a parent of 259 students and a pediatrician, and a lead pediatrician in a practice that cares for about 8,000 children within the Wichita surrounding school districts. I really wish this pandemic were over. And I know everybody else does too, but it's not. And we all need to get real and think about the second wave, the third wave, the new wave, the Delta wave that has hit us, which is more than 60% more contagious than previous variations of the COVID virus. And I just want to talk real briefly about that because I feel like it's important for you all as decision makers in the school board, for our district to know what the Delta variant means. The Delta variant has been shown to populate your nose and throat with 1,000 or more times viral particles than previous variations of the COVID vaccine, the COVID virus. And so when you think about contagion and what the CDC established as their basis for what a contact means, they talked about 15 minutes of exposure to another child or adult who was within 6 feet distance from them for 15 minutes. And contagion is based on time of exposure plus dose of illness that is shed. 1,000 times more virus being shed makes this a game changer. And we don't have to geek out on the math, but essentially, like it means that 1 second of exposure could potentially give you just as much or more viral particles in your mucous membranes if another child coughs in your vicinity or sneezes or clears their throat or is even just breathing. And that is why this is a new game. Like it is a more contagious variant. And for that reason, pediatricians around the country are concerned that having a higher exposure of a virus to a child may equate with more severe disease. And we're not confident that that's what's going to happen, but regardless of whether it's more severe disease or just more numbers of disease, there will be more children impacted and there will be more children who are ill that way, and for that reason there will just be more hospitalizations. So I just want you to consider the science of the contagion of this specific virus, and I urge you strongly to think of the layers of protection that we discussed last year. Masking should be universal. We should continue to socially distance, to increase ventilation, and to practice all of the other things that we were practicing for the past year. This may be a worse year if we don't. Thank you for your time and for your service to all of the children in 259 and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Our next speaker is Jennifer Musaji. And if I butchered your last name, please correct me.
You got it right.
Thank you.
I have provided a handout as well that has sources listed for everything I have that I'm going to state here. As you've probably seen, the COVID situation in Wichita is concerning. Our numbers are higher than they were last year when the school board chose to move the start date back. Hospitalizations are over double what they were when school started. As we are seeing in Louisiana, Texas, Florida, and Arkansas, hospitals are filling fast around the country. Unfortunately, the Delta variant seems to be more severe in children. In Louisiana, in June, the average age of the child admitted to a hospital was 16. By July, that number had dropped to 12. In Houston, there are no more pediatric ICU beds, and a baby on a ventilator had to be life-flighted 150 miles away for treatment. More children are hospitalized right now than at any point in the entire pandemic. Hospitalization and death are not the only concerns with COVID. COVID can cause long-term damage to kidneys, lungs, hearts, liver, and the GI tract. It can cause blood clots that can lead to stroke even in children. One of the most concerning effects of COVID, though, is cognitive declines, aka brain damage. Recent studies find long-term symptoms such as brain fog, inability to concentrate, short-term memory loss, loss of taste and smell are all linked to brain atrophy. One study found that having COVID led to a greater cognitive decline than the average stroke. One study found brain changes in every person who had COVID, even those with mild illness. The idea of our children being infected with an illness that can cause brain damage should concern us all. A recent article described COVID as this generation's polio because of the level of disability we are seeing. It is also airborne. What does this mean? It means sanitation alone will not affect spread. Why would we fail to protect against the most common transmission type? The only ways to do that are via increased ventilation and mask wearing. However, mask wearing must be done effectively to work. As studies going back to 2013 show, if a person wearing a mask is exposed to a source of infection who is not masked, it is minimally effective at preventing disease. However, if the source of infection is wearing a mask, it significantly decreases the chances that other people will get ill. Obviously, both parties being masked is most effective of all. This means that I cannot protect my child by sending her in a mask. It means my child's mask protects your child, and your child's mask protects my child. The only way masks work is for everyone to be wearing them, and it only takes one unmasked person in a class to infect others. I understand that some people are angry about wearing masks, but we cannot ignore the science that tells us how to protect our children. I don't want my kids or their kids to get sick. We know what to do because we did it last year. I leave you with 3 quotes from doctors at children's hospitals desperately trying to sound the alarm. Dr. Highsmith at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital says in the past week and a half to 2 weeks, we've seen children presenting and being admitted for COVID. They have children intubated over the past week with COVID pneumonia. Dr. Perno at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital says over the last 7 days, we've seen more patients than in any other 7 days since the pandemic began. We're seeing a dramatic increase in kids. And finally, in response to the Health Commissioner of Tennessee's statement that they are on pace to completely fill children's hospitals across the state by the end of next week, Dr. Levine, CEO of Ballard Health Hospital, stated, "Children have already died, others are on ventilators, and all of it is preventable. So is what's coming." Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our final speaker tonight is Dr. Steve Davis.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the board, president, superintendent, thanks for allowing me to speak today. So my name is Steve Davis, and I'm a practicing family physician in Wichita. I'd like to start out by asking that you require universal masking throughout the district as students return to school. So requirement, not strong recommendation. By now, I'm sure that you're all very aware of the threat posed by the Delta variant. So I'd like to spend this time trying to convince you that requiring masks as kids return to school is essential. First, and this is a big ask, I'd like you to do your best to leave behind any emotion when making this decision. I know that emotions are really high right now, obviously, and I definitely wouldn't want to be in your position while making this decision. It's tough. But I'd like you to try to see a mask requirement for what it really is. It's one of only 2 very effective tools we have to control this plague. It's that simple and it's that important. I'd like to emphasize that masks are a tool. That's it. And like all tools, we bring them out when we need them and we put them away when we're done. I think we learned that in kindergarten, right? But right now, we really, really need them. Next, besides masks, the only other tool for controlling this plague is what? Vaccination. And as you're all aware, our kids under 12 don't have that option. So they're wide open to this infection and completely vulnerable. Granted, so far, this disease doesn't seem to do the same damage to kids as it does to adults, but I need to emphasize so far, and as far as we know. For example, you might want to look up post-polio syndrome for a frightening history lesson about what viruses can do to people long after the infection is actually gone from their body. So I have to ask this question: why risk serious injury or death when we have a tool to prevent it? Masks. Lastly, given how contagious Delta is, I just can't imagine how we can hope to keep the doors open without universal masking at this point. Being from Kansas, I'd like to compare this to walking through a tall, dry prairie, carrying a flint and steel and showering sparks as we go. We might get lucky, but if we do start a fire, it's going to spread like crazy and do a lot of damage. So what I'm trying to say is that on top of the illness, we're also talking about quarantine, 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 and more quarantine, okay? There's your wildfire. And there's nothing you can do except wait for it to burn out. And that includes students, teachers, staff, and all of their families. That's a lot of missed work for families that simply can't afford to miss work right now. And a lot of missed school for kids that desperately need to be in school. In Sedgwick County, we've seen the outcomes in the past with strong recommendations. On the other hand, we've all enjoyed the benefits of students and masks. We already know how this works. So let's use the tools that we have and not try to reinvent the wheel. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We appreciate the words of the public communication, and we will now address this issue. If Patrick would like to call the item.
Next item, under education, continuing discussion, 2021-22 school year plan, COVID recovery and operating plan.
Dr. Thompson?
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share the district's recommendation. We are here with our COVID-19 chairperson. She is going to present a presentation to you from district administration and district staff. As you know, we have a COVID group that meets seem like every day. And we've kind of combed through a lot of different things. And so this is what we are here to bring to you this evening. So I will turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Terry Moses.
Good evening. Terry Moses. I'm the Director of Safety and Environmental Services for Wichita Public Schools. Whew, what a year. A year ago, I came to you. I think I stood over there instead of sat here. I'm not sure. But we talked about whether or not we could even meet in person learning. And throughout the past year, we've had to force you to make a lot of decisions, and we were somewhat hopeful at the end of the school year when we had graduation that we wouldn't be back in the situation of forcing you to make difficult decisions again. Obviously, as you listen to the speakers that presented this evening, you know that you're in a situation of having to make a difficult decision again. What I'm here to do is to provide you just kind of an overall plan and some information about that particular decision, i.e. masks. So, let me see if I can, whoops, went too far. And we got it on noise here, so. Our multi-part safety strategy is, as several of the speakers talked about, we know in order to effectively deal with any type of infectious disease, you have to do many things, and we learned that through COVID. We know that we have to have a variety of strategies as we move forward to deal with that. As a result, we've already publicized this, but it stands as our recommendation. Our administrative recommendation to the Board of Education is to strongly recommend that all Wichita Public School employees and students, regardless of their vaccination status, wear masks indoors. The second part of that recommendation is that masks be required for all visitors to Wichita Public Schools buildings. That's basically anyone who doesn't have an official WPS ID badge. Questions have been asked of me as to why we are requiring masks for visitors and not for students and staff. And the answer is that we have better ability to monitor and obviously better ability to contact trace people that are in our buildings on a daily basis, whereas visitors, we simply don't have the ability to do that. Two reasons that we're here today talking about in-person learning versus where we were last year, and that's vaccinations and testing. Because vaccinations are available to people over 12 years old, we continue to strongly encourage. We are not requiring those. We will offer opportunities, as we did just as soon as the vaccination became available to USD 259. Last year, we offered it to our staff. We will continue to do that. This summer, just as soon as individuals younger than adults could receive the vaccination, we offer vaccination clinics for those as well. We will continue. We have a great nursing staff. We will continue to offer those clinics throughout the district. We will provide off-site locations as much as possible. And of course, we will provide those to staff and students with consent. In regards to testing, one of the things that we learned through the COVID process last year, quick testing so that we could get people back to work if they were not COVID was very important. And we know that now, as we were talking with folks, that quick testing is another thing that will keep us safe in our buildings. So testing will be available by appointment for those with or without symptoms. And we have rapid results test for those. This is free for staff, students, and their families. For those at attendance centers, our nurses that are at attendance centers will be able to do those tests on site at attendance centers. Those at non-attendance centers, the school safety center, the school service center, IST, will be asking them to go to AMAC, our administrative building, to get those tests. This is the touchiest little button on this thing. I am sorry. In terms of healthy learning and work environments, one of the things that was talked about, and we know one of the things that we feel was a great success with USD 259 last year was to improve our air handling enhancements. Our folks in the facilities division did a lot of research and worked very hard to make sure that the air that was circulating throughout our buildings was as safe as possible. We also will continue to use isolation rooms. Again, this year, we used them last year so that anybody who becomes ill or develops symptoms after they arrive at school, we have a place where they can go safely and wait for a parent or a guardian to come get them. Also last year, one of the things that we used that was a great asset to us in terms of monitoring the situation within our buildings was our COVID employee hotline. That allows us to centralize information and respond and track information in a timely manner.
Terry, go back. Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
No, you're right. Go ahead, keep going.
Go ahead, one.
Yeah, go ahead. There you go.
Okay. Okay, we have a continued emphasis on hand washing, healthy habits, and staying home with sick. That's one of the things. We continue to put up posters. We continue to work with all of our staff, especially with our elementary students, to make sure that they are monitored and they are educated in regards to the necessary nature of that healthy habits. hand sanitizing material, cleaning supplies available for all our schools, classrooms, and offices. And we will continue to do the intensive cleaning, including high touch points. All of that will continue throughout the year. Healthy learning environments and work environments, public health requirements are what we are using to guide us. As you heard, there's a lot of information about recommendations. Just in the handful of speakers you heard tonight, you heard recommendations that go both ways. And so we are using public health requirements to guide us. Sedgwick County and the Wichita Public School System data will be continued to be monitored to identify operation and health concerns. And as last year, one of the terms that we all grew to dislike was the term pivot. But certainly we know that in the era of COVID, and this is now an era, it is no longer a year, it is an era of COVID, we know that continued adjustments are absolutely necessary. And that means that we need to continue to monitor with the information that we gain from our attendance information as well as our COVID hotline and the information that we receive from, example, Sedgwick County. We will make adjustments, will be made as requirements change. Why strongly recommends masks? Because they're important. What you have in front of you is a flow chart. Up on the screen, we have a sample of that flow chart, the WPS COVID case protocol. Our staff has worked diligently to create protocol so that anybody working in our schools understands if this, then that. And the example for masks is if you're exposed and both parties are wearing masks, the exposed individual may continue to attend school or work if they wear a mask for 14 days from the last date of contact and remained symptom-free. Vaccines, again, a very important part. If exposed, both parties wearing masks but fully vaccinated, exposed individual may continue to attend school or work if they wear a mask for 14 days from last date of contact and remain symptom-free. And this is all in the flow chart that's available to you. We know that it's a lot of information, so we will rely on our COVID hotline, the people that staff it, to provide information to especially employees when they call with questions. The role of testing, if exposed and unvaccinated or partially vaccinated, the individual may continue to attend school or work if they wear a mask for 14 days from the last date of contact, remain symptom-free, and get a rapid antigen test, get daily rapid antigen testing for 8 days. All of that COVID protocol is available online. There's a QR code there that our audience can track in terms of information. And like I said, we made it available to you. To summarize, I just want to say how thankful we are for every employee within USD 259. We made it through last year's school year because of the collaboration and work with people in facilities, transportation, operations, communications, and of course those that worked hard in education to make sure that we had education opportunities to meet the needs of our kids. Our virtual learning academy through EI Academy remains this year. As you spoke last week, you heard, or last board meeting, you had 2 people who spoke and requested that My School Remote remain as an opportunity for students. Unfortunately, that is not available per KSDE, the Kansas legislature. It is available on a limited opportunity if quarantine or other medical reasons require, but it is not available as it was last year. Of course, we will continue our innovative technology. One of the positive things that came out of COVID last year in terms of the change away from normal was the movement we made in regards to technology. We will continue to have one-on-one device per student throughout the year. And one of the big things that we've learned from COVID and when we did our survey with employees was the social emotional learning. We also did the survey with parents and students. And one of the things we know is that social emotion learning is our top priority. Just as you saw tonight, you saw how the issue of COVID has brought out the emotions in a lot of people. And we know that's going to be relayed to our students as well. So we are already moving forward with our ESSER funding. Some of that funding that's been made available to us, we've started hiring people so that we can make sure and deal with the most social and emotional aspects of COVID. Student, staff, and partner activities will resume 21 in the 21-22 school year following health and safety guidelines. We are going to allow parents to visit, community partner activities to go on, foreign exchange students, and as I said at the very beginning, masks will be required for all visitors. We do want our kids to continue to learn out in the community, so we will have field trips. They will be allowed in-state with masks for all participants. And again, the ability to contact trace when we go out into the public is different than what we have in our buildings. So that's one of the reasons we're asking for masks when our students leave our buildings. We are suspending, because of the variable nature of COVID in other states, we are suspending out-of-state field trips at this time. Food service. We're going to follow federal guidelines, and all students will eat at no cost during the 21-22 school year. As we've stated before, this will be except for a la carte. Meals will be distributed to students at school. We will have no remote sites. Breakfast is always a priority. It will be in the classrooms at elementaries. That will allow us to continue to cohort. Second chef's breakfast after the bell for both middle and high school students. One of the big changes for this, and we've already emphasized with you, is that now we will ask families to complete a household income survey used in lieu of the federal free lunch form that we had used prior, and that helps us obtain income data for our students. Transportation, all students who ride buses, First Student, regular transportation, and City of Wichita buses are required by federal law to wear a mask while on a bus. There are limited exceptions to that in terms of health necessities and age requirements, but generally all students will be required to wear masks. Masks will be made available to all those students who arrive at the bus without one. Our administrative recommendation to the board tonight is that we strongly recommend that all Wichita Public School employees and students, regardless of vaccination status, wear masks indoors. We also are asking that masks be required of all visitors to Wichita Public School buildings, anyone who doesn't have an official Wichita Public School name badge. And finally, we will monitor data and public health requirements. Changes and concerns will come back to the board for discussion and potential action, just like they did last year. I will stay for any questions you have.
Thank you, Terry. I want to thank the board first for taking this issue on. It would have been the easy way to leave this in the hands 100% of the administration, but I think all of us felt that it was time that we publicly state what we would desire to do instead of just having the administration do it on their own. I just have a couple opening questions. And I'll start off with Dr. Thompson, and you can direct it any way you want. If my understanding is correct, when the CDC recommendations came out, there was also a recommendation that all vaccinated people, whether you were vaccinated or not vaccinated, all people should be wearing masks indoors. And if I understand correctly, that was at the same time, or maybe it was in the same report, as the recommendation about school children. Is that correct? Does anyone know that?
I would say that those recommendations were all together. That's where we obtained those. So yes, to your question.
So even with vaccinated people, our local Board of Health, City of Wichita, no one has required a mandated mask for indoor people, whether you're vaccinated or not, correct?
That is correct, and our local Board of Health is the Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners, and we have, of course, communicated with their public health department.
And then my second question is, we have had latchkey and we've had summer school. When did we stop using the word optional, which we will never use that word again? But when did we stop using the word optional and start using the word strongly recommend? I forget.
July
July.
6th.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we see an increase in mask wearing after we changed our verbiage?
We went from summer school to only latchkey, and so we had a lot less people in our buildings after that point of time. It has literally only been latchkey in terms of a student population that has been in our building.
And I'm going to use Dr. Davis's phrase, and I realize the past is no perfect predictor of the future, but did we see any wildfires in our latchkey program?
Not that I'm aware of.
And one last question. Last year, we were advised to not do, and I remember this advice being very, very strong, not to do high school sports. We had to come back, and we took that advice. And we came back less than 3 weeks later, I think it was, and reversed ourselves. Did we see any wildfires on our sports teams?
No, sir, we did not. We had an occasional case, and with testing and close contact quarantines, I would say, and I think we reported after that we successfully completed the fall and either winter and spring sports sessions.
Thank you. Ron?
Yes, thank you, Terry. I was just wanting to find out, so the extracurriculars are a go, everything that we're, I guess, expecting of school is all a go?
Yes, happily, I've been in buildings and kids that are students that are already involved in those early sports, as well as even some of our extracurricular practice have been on our buildings for the past several weeks.
Okay, and then lockers, is all that pretty much going to be the same, like lockers and also with the cafeterias, are principals going to have the discretion to space people out as they see needed and those kind of things?
Yeah, yes, sir. In terms of lockers, I think you will find culturally that very few students use lockers.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, in one building, they want to get rid of them because nobody uses them.
Right.
So I don't think that's an issue. In terms of lunchrooms, we're working with, and I know our food service staff are working with all of the principals in terms of looking at alternative ways to serve lunch so that they can not ensure social distancing, but allow for social distancing as much as possible.
Okay. I was thinking of lockers like as a gathering place. So what about, they're going to have discretion over commons areas,
Yes.
assemblies, and that kind of stuff?
And I'll put on my other hat, and I will tell you that from my safety services hat, we always discourage those gatherings. We want hallways to be what they are meant for, moving people from one place to the other and not a social gathering place. And so we want kids to use the hallways to get from classroom to classroom and do so in an expeditious manner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and obviously this is an issue that carries great weight, whatever we decide. I have several questions, and then I'd like to go ahead and put a motion on the table, even though I know there's others that want to talk. We'll at least know what we're thinking about. In your research, and maybe this is for Dr. Thompson, what are the school districts around us doing? Because we know the county and the city have recommended. What's happening with the other schools?
I think we've, one of the things that COVID has allowed us to do is really enhance our communication with our local districts. And the communication we've received recently from our local districts, and those are the ones within the Sedgwick County area primarily, is that they are either mask optional, or I think mask optional is the term that we hear most often when we talk to those districts.
So optional as opposed to strongly recommend that we're saying?
That is correct.
Okay. The quarantine protocol, and you had a slide on that. I just have a question. It's the one with what happens if you're both vaccinated, or some are and some aren't. This one.
Well,
Yeah.
Patrick, get me back to where I need to be.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask my
Now,
question. Because it comes down to the, if the person, the people in the room are unvaccinated, and they have to attend to wear a mask for 14 days, and they have to be tested.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
Patrick
okay.
was helping me out there.
Yeah, that's fine. I deal with technology too. My question, the bottom line of my question is, how are we going to enforce or apply the protocols that we've put into place?
In regards to quarantine, we fall back on the public health officials, like we did last year. If you remember, we sent the letter, but it referred to the Sedgwick County Health Department in regards to quarantine. And we will use that same guidance in regards to what we get from Sedgwick County.
Okay, and I know last year we did a lot of our own research on quarantining for our own staff and students that were in our buildings. Will we continue that this year?
Absolutely. One of the things that through Hall Pass, again, it's something that we started 14 years ago, or not, sorry, in 2014, we'll be able to keep track of visitors into our buildings, but we also can keep track through, for example, seating charts on buses, keep track of students, and then we're going to use seating charts in classrooms. So that'll help us when people, if we do have a positive case, we'll be able to do that in-depth research in regards to contact tracing.
Okay. My next question is about our staff. And I know we don't have 100%, but what kind of a percent, based on the tests that we've given and the self-reporting that our teachers have done, where do we stand with vaccinations in the district?
Our vaccinations, we vaccinated about 45% of our staff, and we know then there were other staff that went outside and got vaccinated through their own doctor or other places. So we don't have the exact number in terms of how many staff have been vaccinated, but we feel that we're over probably the community numbers.
Okay. So we're more than 45, because we know we have 45.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're probably pushing
We
50,
would
60?
think well over, I would like to say 60, but that is a guess because we just don't have the ability to actually track because people went other places to get
Okay.
vaccinated.
Dr. Thompson?
Yep.
I think I'm going to correct that number. I think the number is 52% of the
52,
staff
okay.
that we have vaccinated here on our site. And those are not people that may have taken the vaccine at other
So
locations.
that's
it's-
our own staff has vaccinated our own staff at 52% rate.
That is
So then a lot of, I do know, I personally know teachers and other people that work in our district that have gone to their doctor or to the health department or the library or other places, and through the summer have gotten vaccinated.
Yes. And thank you. I probably had old information with the 45.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to make a motion, and again, I know that we're not through with the discussion, but this just gives us a motion on the floor. I move that the Board of Education approve the administrative recommendation as presented, that we will strongly recommend that all Wichita Public Schools employees and students, regardless of vaccination status, wear masks indoors.
I second that.
And that masks be required for all visitors to Wichita Public School buildings, which pertains to anyone who doesn't have an official WPS name badge. In addition, I would also recommend that administration regularly monitors WPS data as well as public health requirements, and that any changes or concerns with our district data be brought back to this board for discussion and potential action. That is my motion, and just to emphasize it, we are not saying optional masks. We are saying strongly recommended masks. We also are saying that we're going to continue to monitor. What we've learned more than anything through this pandemic is that we make a decision today, the data changes on us, and we have to make a different decision 4 days from now or whenever. So we're going to continue to monitor and see what happens and see if we need to make adjustments, and we're asking the superintendent to bring that back to us. So with that, I give up my time.
I second that motion.
There's a motion by Cheryl Logan, seconded by Mia Turner. Ben?
Yes, Ben Blankley, District 1. So on the case protocol, it talks about during like contact tracing, and if you're vaccinated, if you're fully vaccinated, you're considered, you wear a mask for 14 days and remain symptom-free, and you can continue to go to school or work. How will we determine proof of vaccination?
We will have to work with our partners at the Sedgwick County Health Department, as well as, of course, simply asking questions. You know, the way that generally the public is being asked to prove proof of vaccination is to show the card that you received when you received the vaccination.
And we will work through HR for that. So we won't be just randomly going up to people asking them. We will have the protocol will be run through our human resources for confidentiality.
Okay, and I assume the same for students in that circumstance?
That will be through our health services, so which is our nurses. So again, the confidentiality piece will be there.
Okay. Yes. Do we know, Dr. Thompson, what are current vaccine uptake rates for 12 to 18-year-old adolescents in Sedgwick County?
I don't have that data.
Okay. I know, anecdotally, I think I saw like 20% maybe.
I mean,
it's
what we do know is that they're getting them, but we don't know the percentage. But at some point, we will be able to kind of collaborate with the county to get what records they have to kind of let us know approximately around our area what that percentage is, but we have no idea at this point. At least I don't.
So I looked at the stats today, and basically 0.2% of our population tested positive for COVID today. And so if we extrapolate that to our 47,600 students, it's approximately 100 students that could potentially have COVID today. And if when they come to our buildings, and they could be close contact exposure to, let's say, 10 kids, then within the first 2 weeks of school, we've got 1,000 kids out on quarantine. And that's a bit concerning to me, primarily because our goal here is to keep kids in school learning. And that's going to cause the kind of disruption that we had last year. Unfortunately, now we don't have the My School Remote model to shift kids into on quarantine, the full breadth of it. We've got strategies in place. But parents, like I'm a working parent, my kid's a 259 kiddo, and I don't have the leave time available to handle 10 days off work. And that's assuming doesn't get it. Because in his case, he'll be going to school with a mask for COVID and for other reasons. But he'll be in, most likely, this kind of high-risk contact where the kids he's around wouldn't necessarily be wearing masks if they weren't required. And so if he's one of the 1,000 unlucky kids, then all of a sudden I've got to go home from work for at least 10 days, probably unpaid because I've had to use a lot of other leave recently, and I'm fairly well off. And we've got families in our district that's a real desperate situation, and we're trying to keep this economy humming, and I can't support this recommendation as written. And so I would like to amend the motion on the floor and strike strongly recommended and replace it with require.
I second.
And Ben and Ron, I think what we'll do to keep it clean is we will have the vote on the first motion first, and then if that fails, then we will have a second clean motion that you just made.
Okay.
Because I think it's impossible for the presenter to accept that amendment, since that's a almost a 180-degree change instead of just, one or two little words. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
I agree.
And you can vote yes or no on that motion, and then if it passes, it passes, and if it fails, your motion will obviously be entertained. Did you have any more questions or comments?
No, I don't at this time.
Thank you, Ben. Ernestine?
Well, I'm particularly concerned about the 12 and under, because they do not have a choice and their parents do not have a choice. There is no vaccine for children 12 and under, and that's weighing very heavily on my heart. I know that plenty of kids have learned how to use the masks, and many people have talked about how that they didn't think their kids would adjust to them, but lo and behold, they did. Those are the safety reasons why we need to have the elementary wearing the masks. But our job, in addition to keeping them safe, is also to educate them. If that's not our main job, is education. So I want to find out what is the, and Dr. Thompson, I don't know if you are the one to answer, what is the education reason why particularly, say, K1 and 2 maybe we shouldn't have masks required, or maybe not all the time required, but some of the, I'm just real confused, and as I said, that 12 and under just weighs heavily on my heart. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to refer back to our speech pathologist. As we've been meeting with teachers and folks, the gravest concern academically is our little people, because they learn how to read by watching and looking at pronunciations. So when you say b, you're trying to articulate that, or t, or whatever you're doing to try to get kids to learn how to read. Our English language learners, our kids that are in speech, it's very difficult to do those types of things, to close third grade reading proficiency and those kinds of things with children and teachers wearing masks during literacy time, because
right
that's
now,
important.
Even as you were saying, we couldn't.
Well,
tell if
you don't
it was
say
a
it like
da,
that.
da,
That's
da,
a very
or
inappropriate way to do it, but
Mhm.
I'm just trying to give examples of what I mean by that. So that is very true academically. There are some concerns with kids being able to be able to see those pronunciations and be able to, do the things that they need to do with literacy, for sure. And those are comments and things that we've learned from, the work that we've done in the past, last year and so on and so forth. That was a huge piece from our teachers who teach children how to read.
The other thing is that I'm concerned right now, Sedgwick County testing is positive of 8.5%. The state is at 8.9%. We know that Missouri and Arkansas, among I think probably Texas and Florida, were just flooded with COVID cases. And those Missouri cases are, quite frankly, rolling across this border into Kansas and eastern Kansas, and has now hit Sedgwick County. What are we going to do? And I know that we're going to revisit this on a regular basis, but
what is the thought if we hit 10%? Because I know last year at 10%, that was kind of our cutoff point for doing some serious decision-making about sending kids home and remote learning, and that's what, we're at 8.5, and it's moving. What would we do if Sedgwick County, for example, hits 10%, or if we have that kind of thing within our schools happens? What are we going to do?
We're going to do exactly what we did last year. We're going to continue to monitor that information. You made several decisions last year as we're starting this year, and then we changed those decisions. And that was all based on the monitoring of how our situation was and the community health situation. And one piece of that is that testing percentage. The other pieces that we'll look at is our attendance. We'll look at our staff availability. We'll talk to the hospital availability, the information that we receive from Sedgwick County. Again, I think all of us grew to hate the word pivot last year. Unfortunately, we are going to have to once again learn to pivot this year.
Well, it certainly is a difficult time in life, isn't it? And
yes, it is.
Someone used the word plague, and this really is. It's like a plague. I don't think we'll have enough data by our next meeting, which is the 23rd of August.
Yes, ma'am.
The kids will have only been in school basically one day of 1 week and then a week of, so 6 days. That wouldn't be enough to gather very much data, but I sure would appreciate it if you could keep an eye. But
yes, we'll.
Our September meeting is the 13th of September. If I make a decision to vote for this recommendation, I sure want to re-look at this on the 13th of September, but it's just very difficult for me right now to make this decision because I see those 12 and under kids unable to get vaccines, and I just would like very much to be able to say, would you at least all of those kids wear the masks? And I know that just making it a strong recommendation isn't going to make a difference, or it's going to make very little difference, I would say.
And Ernestine, I think if I understand Cheryl's motion correctly, we don't have to get stuck with what our calendar is. If the administration feels that there's any time that we need to be called back here,
So we could have special meetings.
we could have a special meeting even if
I
we
would
need
feel
it.
better about that. That makes me feel a little bit
It-
better. But
I'm not trying to speak for you, Cheryl. Is that what your motion said?
That is absolutely correct. Just as we did last year, we had to call some special meetings. And if we see things change dramatically, we need to get that information and then call a special meeting if it's in between our regular meeting cycles.
Well, I'm not going to make an amendment or of that, but I sure would like to be able to make it so it's mandatory for the 12 and under, but I'm just saying that without putting it on the table. That's just where I'm at now, because I'm just so worried about that young bunch.
Thank you, Ernestine, as we all are. Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2. The first, I have quite a few questions, apologize. The first question that I have, I hope I don't make an enemy out of someone that I feel I have recently made a friendship with. But Esau spoke to us about the service union employees, and in representing the service union, Esau stated they would like required masks. So again, I hope I don't make an enemy out of a recent friend, but we didn't hear that same sort of definitive statement from the teachers union. So can we ask Brent to come down and speak to us about the teachers union position on required masks?
Well, he is not an employee of mine, so I can't make him do anything.
Okay.
But if he
Well,
wants
we'll
to come
leave it
down,
up
he,
to him
if
to
he wants to,
decide
he
whether
can,
he
but
wants to.
I can't require him to do anything.
Okay, so I guess what am I doing? I'm asking if Brent wants to come speak to us regarding the teacher's position?
Let the record show that Brent Lewis has approached the public podium again.
Yes, we have been consistent in stating that as conditions and recommendations change, we expect that the safety of our students and staff are held at a high priority, and that the recommendations of the public health experts and medical community should guide our policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. My second question, and this kind of relates to the comments Ben made earlier regarding vaccinations of students. And I'm not sure where you got that information, Ben, but you thought in the 12 to 17 year range in the city of Wichita, about 20% are vaccinated. Dr. Thompson, I believe in addition to providing a vaccination clinic for staff, aren't I correct that we also opened vaccinations to students when they became available?
Yes, ma'am.
And you stated that the data on the staff that our records show that we vaccinated was 52%. What does our data show on our students that we vaccinated in the 12-year to 17-year range?
Okay, I'm going to look to my colleague to give me a number of the students that we vaccinated.
Yes, students.
So let us look that up and give that to you, because I'm sure we have it, but I don't know how many we have, to be honest. I have no idea, but do you know?
Go ahead and go to the podium, Kimber.
I will tell you, we did not vaccinate the students like we did our clinic. We actually opened it up for Sedgwick County to come in and take those give the vaccination to the students. So Sedgwick County has those numbers. Now, I don't know if we have those numbers, but we did not. We kept track of our own, of what we vaccinated with our nurses. Sedgwick County is vaccinating our children.
Okay.
Correct. Kimber Kazitz, Director of Health Services. And so since Pfizer is the only vaccine that has been approved for age 12 to 17, Sedgwick County is managing that vaccine currently. We had Moderna last year and still currently have Moderna that we vaccinate our staff with. So we did have clinics in June and a little bit into July at some different middle schools around the city. And I don't have their final numbers because they get back with me after that, but I know we vaccinated just over 500 students aged 12 to 17, and then there were also adults that were vaccinated as well, family members. It could be family members or staff members. But the bulk of our staff was done last winter and spring, where we did just under 5,000 staff members with Moderna vaccine. And so until we get all of the vaccination records in when students come in and offices and the county put everything into WebIZ, our state registry, I won't know the total percentage of our students that are vaccinated, because your data in is as good as your data out. So we run reports. We can see every vaccine that students have if the doctor or the health department enters it into the registry. And so that'll be very helpful for our nurses with our electronic health record as people are enrolling their students and they're coming in.
Thank you, Kimber.
So she said that she's aware of 500 students, and on the spot here, I'm not able, I don't know what percentage of our students are 12 to 17-year-olds. So is there any kind of way of estimating what percent of our students?
You would not be able to estimate, because then we don't know how many students went out and got their own vaccination on their own.
Well, of course, yeah,
outside
there
of
would
our
be
clinic,
folks
which I know is-
outside,
which
just
I know
like,
is-
and staff could have gone outside.
How many
But as
middle
far as
school
what
kids do we
we
have?
did,
That's around middle school age, middle school. That's secondary.
so 500 out of 23,000.
But there are some of the secondary kids that can, when you're in sixth grade. I mean, are you 14 yet? Yeah, you wouldn't be. So you're talking about seventh graders, so you can cut out some of the sixth graders in his number. So maybe about 19,000 or so.
So somebody do the math real quick. 500 out of 19,000, how many did we?
What are you looking at me for? You're
Yeah, engineer.
Yeah, engineer.
Pull out your calculator.
We've got $1,000 calculators in front of us.
I would assume that's going to be even lower
Well,
than
1%.
your,
I mean,
What?
1% would be
What'd you say, Ben?
190. 1% would be 190.
so, yeah. So 2% that we,
I think it's about 4%.
about,
A little over 4.
a lot lower than Ben's 20%. And, the data that I looked at today for nationwide said 16 to 17 years, 51%, for 12 to 15 years, 40%. So, gosh, we're considerably under that, it would seem. I mean, we don't know. We don't know whether kids went to their pediatricians and got vaccinations.
That would be correct information. Or if they did it, in any of our other facilities that were giving out vaccinations. That is correct.
And of course, Mr. Menz on the 6th of August in his statement reminded us that the most effective tool we have to stop the spread is vaccination. Now, my next question, on from vaccinations to testing. We're going to have testing that's going to be a part of our quarantine procedure that we addressed earlier. And we're going to have testing available for folks who want to be tested. Other than the quarantine-related testing, is there going to be any requirement for testing? Or
There will be some requirement of testing as part of the quarantine pieces. So there will be some required testing to be able to stay in the facility, to stay in school, whether you're teaching or whether you're learning, alongside wearing your mask as part of one of the protocols that we have in our system.
Okay, so that will be when it's required, is in that quarantine protocol that we discussed earlier.
That is correct.
And in that quarantine protocol, there is some talking about wearing masks for 14 days. So at that point, it will become a required mask.
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to segue into another question about required masks, and that is if we are watching our data and we have individual sites where we have concerns. I mean, I know we did this last year, that when we went off kind of district-wide mandates, that then the administration and superintendent staff watched individual attendance centers. Would there be any situations where we might require masks at a particular attendance center in lieu of an entire district-wide mandate of masks?
We have talked and think that would be an appropriate measure for individual schools that needed that additional mitigation strategy.
And when, I mean, again, I know you're all just putting all this together, but when would it become mandated for a particular site?
When we look at our attendance and feel that the attendance is to the level in which enough students or staff are absent for that specific reason, and then we would do the requiring of the masks at those sites for a period of time for mitigation purposes.
Okay, so it is possible that even if we decide today not to require masks, it is possible that at particular sites, based on the amount of the illness, that there might be isolated requirement of masks.
That is correct.
Okay, I have another question, and this one, how can I just ask you to answer a question off the cuff where people do hours and hours of studying and research? But of course, I have a grave concern, like Ernestine does, for the younger kids that can't be vaccinated. But I also have a concern for the younger kids that they learn their reading. So, it's like one does one thing, the other does the other thing,
Yep, there are consequences for every decision.
And there's consequences for every decision. Is there, I have personal experience with a child that had extra support in reading. And that's more kind of almost a tutoring type situation in school, where they're either one-on-one with an aide or in a small group learning. Do we have ways where our English as second language folks and where our preschool kids, our kids under 3rd grade that we're wanting to meet a literacy rate, is there some sort of exception that we could put in our policy that we would require masks? However, when you go to your reading intervention group that only has 4 people and you can all be distanced, that at that point in time you could take off your mask so that we can still get the learning that we need for younger kids and for second language learners, that we could have some sort of way to still get that learning and yet require masks.
Yeah, that would probably be, I don't know. Well, I would say that we have not discussed that.
Okay.
That's what I will say.
Okay.
I mean, we have not discussed all the specificities, who gets to wear them, when they're going to wear them, all that. That has not been discussed.
Okay. Way too much detail, and yeah, I get it. Okay, I think all of my questions that I wrote down have been answered by other folks, so thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I think one thing that you were kind of implying is flexibility, and I think that's part of the reason of the motion wording is that it's not just reading is the problem with mask. It could be a social, emotional situation, and that you must allow your educators to have some flexibility. And if we have a hard mask mandate, in my opinion, I think that's why I think the motion is worded the way it ought to be. And that is, we have to give administration, building administration, teachers, a certain amount of flexibility to handle each individual case the way they come up, if I'm understanding your question.
Well, my last 2 questions were very related to flexibility.
Okay.
And that is something that I believe that our district does very well, even though we all hated the word pivot. Our district did very well at flexibility.
I'm going to also just add in, because I think I know what this gentleman here is going to say to me. We have used clear masks in the past. So I don't know. I'm just saying there's examples of the flexibility that you're talking about. So there are children who have worn, when we were in school, we bought for some students that were in speech those clear masks and things of that nature.
Sure.
So there's some flexibility that we can have on, on situations that we need to address or be flexible with.
Sure, yeah.
So that's just another
I
example.
apologize for not thinking about that.
Yeah, that's
but
just another
the
example.
That's an obvious way to still have a mandatory mask and yet be able to see the facial. So, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Mia?
I just have one question. I know you said that you all will be monitoring. Do you guys have a plan to keep the families updated on the data that you find during your monitoring?
Yes, we do. We work with our Sedgwick County Health Department in regards to notifying somebody when they are a close contact. We follow the guidelines that we were given last year in regards to close contact information.
I'm sorry. I know several very concerned parents, and I think they would, from what I've been told, they would just like to know, nothing's happening right now, something's happening. So even if you find nothing during the week or something like that, however you reach out to us, they would just like to know one way or the other.
You're looking for more transparency?
We're green, we're orange, we're red. Yeah, and I was just wondering if you guys had something like that set up.
Last year, we did a lot of things in regards to transparency. Some worked, some didn't. We'll take your request back to our pandemic team and look at options in regards to transparency. It's something we've already talked about in terms of, and of course, the media fairly regularly contacted us last year and wanted information and data. So certainly, we'll continue to look at the best way we can provide that information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. I usually don't tell personal stories because it's kind of like, having a DJ on the radio saying, I like this song. Well, who cares if the DJ likes the song? This is about whether you like the song. Or so I usually don't give personal stories, but I feel like it's relevant tonight in that I want you to know that the last thing that's on my mind when I go to sleep at night is our students and our staff. The first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning is our students and staff. And I care deeply for this district and for all our students and staff. And I think the reason I'm going to support the motion is because of the second half of the motion. I remember last year, which, by the way, we are in a much better shape at a starting point than we were last year. But last year, when you paint yourself into a corner, it becomes impossible to actually pivot. This motion actually gives us the flexibility, and if I could reassure Ernestine, if we feel at any moment that we have to have a special meeting at midnight, we will be here, and we will take care of these kids no matter what. That is the bottom line. And I know we have a plan to monitor staff and student data in order to do that. And before I call for the vote and before I conclude my comments, I just want to make a statement to the community that I wrote down. The most important thing you can all do is to support our students and staff and allow our district and every other school in Sedgwick County have a normal year is to get vaccinated. The science tells us that vaccines are safe and highly effective. We are all engaged in this work because we deeply care about our students. And every one of us knows what the experts have said time and time again, that the best and safest way for our students is to be in school. We will make sure that happens no matter what. We want our students in our classroom engaging fully in learning. We've got some catching up to do this year, and we are determined to get that done. I'm confident that this plan will allow us to do that, especially since the administration has committed to keeping us informed about district data so that if there's a problem, we can deal with it quickly. I encourage the board to keep this flexibility. And let's get a good start to the school year. And for the community, please, please go out and get vaccinated. Protect yourself, protect our children, and please support a safe and engaging year of learning in the Wichita Public School. Ernestine?
And this is a choice to wear masks. Please, even if we're not mandating it, please wear masks. I don't know how I'm going to vote in just a minute, but I know that even people that have been vaccinated are coming down with COVID and can spread it. I do know that people that are wearing masks are less likely to spread it. We can't have a perfect situation, but please, parents, public, get vaccinated, wear masks, and send your kids to school in masks. That's all.
Thank you, Ernestine. Cheryl?
Yes, I obviously made the motion, and I'm going to vote for it as well. And believe me, I have heard from a lot of people over the last 2 weeks. And I've tried to respond because I feel like if they're taking their time to send me emails, I'm going to take my time to respond back to let them know that I read them. This is not an easy decision, as many of our decisions with this pandemic have been. But I think we are giving ourselves the opportunity to begin to look at what's happening. We do have our data from summer where we didn't see an uptick. That doesn't mean it wouldn't happen now, because the situation's a little worse now. But I think Stan is exactly right. We have flexibility in this motion to change if we determine that that's the right thing because of what we're seeing in our community, in our schools, wherever. So I'm going to call for the motion to move forward.
Thank you,
Vote,
Cheryl.
to a vote.
And I will have you read the motion one more time.
Yes. I move that the Board of Education approve the administrative recommendation as presented, that we will strongly recommend that all Wichita Public Schools employees and students, regardless of vaccination status, wear masks indoors, and that masks be required for all visitors to Wichita Public School buildings, which pertains to anyone who doesn't have an official WPS name badge. In addition, I would also recommend that administration regularly monitors WPS data as well as public health requirements, and that any changes or concerns with our district data be brought back to this board for discussion and potential action.
All right, I think we are now ready for the vote.
And this motion on the floor by Ms. Logan, it was originally seconded by Ms.
Yeah,
Turner?
it was seconded by Mia.
Mia seconded it.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Motion carries 4-3 with Ernestine Crable, Stan Reeser, Mia Turner, and Cheryl Logan voting yes, Ben Blakely, Julie Hedrick, and Ron Rosales voting no. I appreciate the effort of the board. I know this was not an easy decision, and I know this is not the end of this discussion, and we will keep working through this on the behalf of our students and staff. Thank you. Patrick, next item, please.
Just to confirm, was there another motion to amend by Mr. Blankley?
Since it was completely opposite of her motion, and that one passed, we would only consider it if it had not passed.
Okay. Next item, consent.
Ron, do you have any consent items to pull?
No, I do not, but I just wanted to comment.
Yes,
about
go ahead.
I just wanted to comment about the items that are being purchased, the technology. A lot of this is really good stuff. I know a lot of teachers that use it. So I'm really happy to see things like Edpuzzle, Brain Pop, the Edgenuity, those things on our teachers' menu, so to speak. And also, I hope that teachers will reach some sort of balance. I know everybody's got computers now, so I'm hoping that the teachers reach a good balance between, textbooks and that kind of stuff, and online learning, because there are a lot of resources still I'm sure they're going to use. But I just wanted to make a comment about that. Really, thank you for purchasing the things that we purchased. I think they're really good buys.
I think everybody seconds that, Ron.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you
I
very
don't
much
have
for
anything-
saying
I don't
that.
have anything to pull, though.
Okay, thank you. Ernestine? Ben?
Ben Blankley, District 1, I have nothing to pull.
Stan Reeser, District 4, I'm going to pull Finance B1, the energy service contract. Cheryl?
Cheryl Logan at large, I have nothing to pull.
Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, I'd like to pull E3.
B3?
E, as in elephant.
Okay.
3.
Mia?
Mia Turner, District 5, I have nothing to pull.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda except for B1 and C3.
No, E3.
E3, sorry.
I second that.
Moved by Stan, seconded by Ernestine. All those in favor, go ahead and vote. Now we can vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Thompson, I pulled the B1, the energy service contract. I wanted to give the administration a chance, since this is a fairly large item, to explain what we are attempting to do. I see the finance team's already moving in. And Luke.
And quickly, I will turn it to my colleagues.
Patrick, how do I get to the slideshow? I don't want to pull a Terry Moses. Love you, Terry.
You knew this one would be pulled, right, Luke? So you brought the sheets.
That's right. Should I wear the mask or take it off?
You can take it off.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Reeser, Vice President Blankley, and members of the board. My name is Luke Newman. I'm here with Addie Lowell, and we're here tonight to give you an update on the ESCO project in the next phase. And before I get into it, I do just want to say I know this is the presentation you've really been waiting for tonight. So here it comes.
I'm excited. Me too.
Okay, so just a brief update on where we are with the project as a whole. As you know, you approved Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 consisted of lighting, water, and weatherization upgrades, and this is in 27 of our district buildings. We're currently 87% complete with that work and nearing substantial completion, should be by the end of this month. And then Phase 2 is our boiler replacements and controls work. The first round of controls, I believe it was 7 buildings that were included in Phase 2. And we are 27% complete with that. We've been hitting it hard over the summer, but still a fair amount of work to be done before heating season comes upon us. So we're looking at October 15th, substantial completion on that work. And here's a snapshot of where we stand with all of the phases. We've got Phase 1, 2, and 3 represented on this chart. As you can see, we're getting quite a bit of work done. Really excited about everything that we're able to include in this program. This phase 3 will wrap up the scope for the 27 buildings, and it will include controls replacements at the remaining 15 buildings, 4 chiller replacements, and data analytics and optimization services at all 27 of the buildings. So like I said, very happy with the work we're able to do. We weren't able to get quite as many chillers included in the package just because some of the energy savings didn't end up coming out quite as great as we were hoping they might, but still a good deal of work.
This is the schedule that I shared with you last time. It shows phases 1, 2, and 3. We're pretty much tracking right on schedule there. There have been some COVID, as you know, has delayed a lot of ship times, manufacturer lead times, and so we accelerated the phase 3 approval by just a little bit so that we can order those chillers as soon as possible, because those have been pushed out to 18 weeks, I think it is, for chiller arrival. So that'll give us enough time to get them installed before cooling season comes upon us next spring. And
right.
with that, I will turn it over to Addie.
Thank you, Luke. Okay, so phase 1 and phase 2 is Luke already.
I'm sorry, have you say your name.
Addie Lowell, Director of Budgeting. So phase 1 and phase 2 are funds that were already obligated in fiscal year 21. So that $3.7 and $6.3 million was already obligated out of your capital outlay funds. The phase 3 that we're discussing this evening, totaling just over $7.2 million, is what we want to discuss for our recommendation on how to fund this going forward. We would like to note that a large majority of this phase is an allowable cost under our ESSER funds. And so at this stage, if you can move to the next slide for me, we would propose that the board approve phase 3 at this stage, funded by capital outlay, as we've done the previous 2 phases. And then we move forward with a potential planned use of ESSER funds, assuming that that's approved on an application. We would like to update the option to roll any part of phase 1, 2, or 3 costs into a future lease and basically repay the capital outlay fund for any work done to date under Resolution 2021-12. Again, this provides you the option to employ some additional flexibility in the capital outlay fund for any items that we've spent, if a lease were ever to become the most attractive option for paying for these phases. So finally, it is our recommendation tonight that the board approve the proposed phase 3 scope at a cost not to exceed the $7.2 million, bringing the total combined value of phase 1, 2, and 3 to a total cost not to exceed the $17.258 million. It is recommended that the board approve paying for phase 3 currently from capital outlay funds, and to instruct staff to apply for the use of ESSER funds for the allowable portion of phase 3. It is also the recommendation that the board adopt Resolution 2021-12, declaring the intent to authorize the reimbursement of any part or all expenditures related to the acquisition of energy conservation improvements for the district, should staff return with that recommendation.
Thank you, Addie.
You bet.
Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2. I think this is exciting tonight to learn that potentially 5.1 million of this phase could be funded by the ESSER funds. So that's an even an improved scenario over what we've been presented previously, which has all been positive. And I'm sure that's because we are doing things with the HVAC system that does improve the air circulation, which, as we discussed earlier, is one of the ways that we can create safer buildings for our students during this COVID pandemic that continues. So I think that's really exciting, and I would make a motion to approve this if there's no other discussion, and improve the entire, I'd like to make a motion for the entire recommendation, including the part of instructing staff to apply for ESSER funds for the allowable costs.
Ben Blankley, District 1, I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ben. Motion on the floor to approve the recommended action on Finance 1 Energy Service Contract. And you may vote. Motion carries 7-0. Next item, and let's make sure we get the number right this time, E3. Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2, and yes, the item that I pulled is the sale of some property on the AMAC site, which would have previously been the Southeast High School site. Large site, and don't need all that acreage for an administrative center like we needed the acreage, and even more when it was a high school site. I was involved, and my family was involved in being dissatisfied with the original proposal for the police substation, which was to expand it at its current location, which is located close to Edgemoor and Kellogg. And in that dissatisfaction with the final plan that was presented by the police department to expand on that location, one of the things that was suggested is, well, can't we find some property nearby there that we could build that police station on? And of course, the AMAC building is like just, a couple of blocks down the street. So it's an excellent, in my humble opinion, I think it's an excellent location for that for the police substation to be expanded, and adds some dollars to our capital outlay fund by selling that property. And so I'm very excited. Oh, I also think it's a great partnership with the police. A great partnership between Wichita Public Schools and the City of Wichita Police. So I am very much in favor of this sale, and I would like to make a motion that we approve the sale of the property at AMAC to the City of Wichita for the construction of the East Wichita Police Substation.
Second.
Motion by Julie, seconded by Cheryl, to take the recommended action on the sale of property to the City of Wichita.
Mia wants to
Yes,
speak.
I'm sorry. Mia?
I know I don't speak often. That's why.
No,
Probably you didn't see it.
I was looking down on my book instead of looking up on the screen. That was my fault.
I just wanted to say, as someone who works with the police, we are super, super excited for this purchase. And if it weren't for COVID, I would invite you all to the substation where they're at now, and you would understand why we're so excited. We are all just giddy, and we're excited, and we can't wait to finally have a proper place for our police. So thank you guys very much for that.
Thank you, Mia. And nope. You may vote. Motion carries 7-0. Patrick, next item, please.
Next item, under policy, Flight 3, second review, proposed consolidation of learning services policies. As part of an ongoing effort to consolidate BOE policies, administration proposes the following consolidation of learning services policies. Policy 4600, in-service education, updates to AIP. Policy 4603, payment for in-service activities, updates to AIP. Policy 4605, local in-service education plan, updates to AIP. Policy 6000, curriculum program, updates to first paragraph. And Policy 6410, curriculum guides, update to title and AIP.
Thank you, Patrick. This is the second reading or second review. So this is our last chance to make a final changes. Most of this is consolidation, but is there any questions or concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Ben Blankley, District 1, I move we accept the recommended policy revisions.
Cheryl Logan at large, I second.
Moved by Ben and seconded by Cheryl to take recommended action.
Okay.
Motion carries 7-0. Next item, Patrick?
Next item, under Finance, 2021-22 budget and authorization to publish notice of hearing.
I'd like to turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. So good evening, President Reeser, Superintendent Thompson, members of the board. My name is Addie Lowell. I am the district's Director of Budgeting, and it's a pleasure to be back in front of you again this evening. It's been a couple of years since I've had the privilege to present our budget just due to COVID and, letting Susan take all the glory per usual. And so I know you guys were all waiting for Luke's presentation, and you saved the best for last, so great work. So today was a milestone day for the Finance Division. It was the day that we turned our notice of hearing over to the county's paper, and so we have reached a huge milestone in the FY22 budget planning period, and it's an honor to present the proposed FY22 budget to you all this evening. Okay, so I'd like to start with maybe some recap information from Susan's presentation 2 weeks ago with some highlights and assumptions that were used to develop the fiscal year 22 budget. The base state aid per pupil increased from $45.69 to $47.06, which is a statutory 3% increase under the Gannon laws. We have 2 years. This is the second to last year of that 3% increase. We also are taking advantage of a 3.3% increase in assessed valuations to properties in the Sedgwick County area, which allows you all to maintain our revenues while also offering a mill levy decrease to the constituents of the county, so that's great news. We have also maximized our LOB authority at 33% of our general fund budget. We have a funded base aid FTE decrease of 622.10 FTE, which compared to the enrollment numbers that we saw last year is good news. We get to use the higher of the previous 2 years audited enrollment, and so this provides us some clarity and basically a building point that we get to build our budget off of. We always know that FTE number that we get to work off of. That provides us a huge portion of our general fund budget. And then Susan mentioned this last time, but with some of the trends that came at us with the pandemic, we had a lot of hard decisions in front of us as far as what do we do to estimate some of our funds based on our enrollment trends. Do we include what happened during the pandemic, or do we go back to a pre-pandemic trend? And that is what we chose to do. It gave the board the most flexibility to allow students to return and for us to have the budget authority to spend the weightings that came with those students. And so we opted to move all of our weightings and trends back to the pre-pandemic numbers. And so those are the numbers that I have for you this evening. New this year, I have a new table for you, and I know how much everybody loves tables as much as I do. So we have to also publish our revenue neutral rate. And so I kind of want to walk you through some of the phases that we've gone through this budget planning session in determining our mill levies. We know what our FY21 final mill levy was. This gets reported to us officially by the county after they've sent to us all of their tax collections for the year. We then calculate what the revenue neutral rate would be to maintain the revenue at what we collected last year. It's a significant drop, which doesn't really allow us to sustain the revenues that we need to support our budget. The legislation requires that we turn in a guesstimate, if you will, or basically what we might want to set as our mill levy to establish some revenue amounts for the next fiscal year. So for FY22, on the 20th, we submitted last year's mill levy. We knew we weren't going to exceed it. We've been able to offer slight mill levy decreases year over year for just about the last decade. So we knew we weren't going to go over it. However, on the 20th, there are still very many changing items in the budget. And so we have to leave ourselves some leeway to finalize some of those pieces. At stages, we're still waiting on percentages from KSDE to populate millions of dollars of our budget. And so by the 20th, that's the best we can do, is say, well, we know we're not going to go over last year, so that's what we turned into the county. And here tonight, I'm here with the FY22 proposed mill levy, which is a revenue increase of just about $700,000 to our taxpayers, which allows them also to decrease the mill on their properties as well. So here is kind of the final bits and pieces compared to the last 3 fiscal years. In total, the general fund is set by statute at 20 mills. The capital outlay, we maximize the authority on that one at 8. I'll skip back up to the line above for our supplemental general budget, our local option budget. We use the authority given to us by you all to maximize our LOB at 33% of our general fund. And so this is the mill that is required to support that 33%. Bond and interest, we increased slightly after reviewing the next 8 years of our bond and interest payments. And we also increased our special liability based on some forecasted cash needs as well. So our final mill levy that we're bringing to you this evening is 52.535 mills, which is a decrease of 0.439 mills. Just so you can see visually what our mill levy history has been over the past 10 years, the board has made a commitment to keeping the mill levy flat and stable while still being able to offer slight decreases to offset property tax increases to the constituents of Sedgwick County. So that's a great commitment by our board, and we get to do that yet again this year. So now I want to get into just comparing some of the numbers that you have on the notice of hearing within your packet. And it does get very confusing because what we do on that notice of hearing is compare last year's actuals to this year's budget. And if you look at the totals, there's quite a difference. So I just want to discuss why that is and some terminology around that. So what we're here to bring you this evening is our original adopted budget for fiscal year 22. This is the maximum authority that you are allowing us to spend in the district through the course of the year. However, we do have a final adopted budget, which means after enrollment comes, after our count date comes, after we have several audits from various governing bodies, we come back and some of our numbers get adjusted. Sometimes they get an increase more often than not they get decreased. And so that final adopted budget is adjusted down, and we plan for that in our original adopted budget. So the budget authority is kind of a combination of both of those two budgets. You are allowing us some budget authority this evening, and then we also have to adjust that budget authority later through the course of the year as we get each of those audited numbers. Budgeted expenditures are the planned numbers that we are bringing to you this evening to approve for us to spend, and then actual expenditures are the amounts that we spent last year. So looking back at fiscal year 21, at this time last year, you approved for the district to have an adopted budget authority of over $809 million, which was the largest budget we had seen to date. And if you look at what we actually spent on our notice of hearing for FY21, we spent $740 million of that budget that you allowed us. That, again, just shows you that we have to have the authority, and we always want to overshoot our authority because we never want to overspend our budget. We can't by state budget law. So that allows the district some flexibility and allows us that wiggle room for audit adjustments. It always should be less. And we know that last year, due to COVID and some of the decisions that were made around the activities in our schools, we couldn't quite spend on everything that we had in the previous years. So that's why there's just about almost $70 million of a discrepancy between last year's adopted budget to what we actually spent. So, in comparing last year's adopted budget, which is not a number that you see on the notice of hearing, again, you established that maximum budget authority of $809 million. This year, we are requesting a budget authority of $970 million for fiscal year 22, which is an increase of $161 million. It's quite an increase. However, I would like to note that most of this increase is due to the impact of ESSER federal aid, an early payoff of our bonds. We are adding an extra $20 million compared to the last time we brought our budget to you 2 weeks ago to the budget, so we can offer some tax savings to Sedgwick County residents. And then because every child is eating for free this year, we are actually being offered some additional federal revenue for our nutrition services program that has increased that budget significantly and will allow them to operate safely under COVID measures as well. So now I'm going to get into some of the more specific funds. Our general fund before transfers last year was $395 and change, and this year we are planning for $402.5 million. That's an increase of $7.3 million. And just a note, this will adjust down. We always plan high. This includes all of the weightings that we get for special education and the virtual aid that passes through, which is also experiencing an increase this year. So this will not be the final number. We will not be getting $7.3 million in the general fund in addition to last year. It will be adjusted down, but that's our estimate for you this evening. Going on to the supplemental general fund. Last year, we requested budget authority of $130.5 million, and this evening we've estimated $131.5 million, which is just over $1 million, and that is maximizing our 33% budget authority. Again, depending on what the general fund, that may be adjusted down because we can only have that number be 33% of the general fund. Some other key funds that I would like to present to you this evening include our capital outlay funds. Last year we budgeted just over $63 million. We are bringing that back down to a more comfortable level. Last year we increased our capital outlay budget because we didn't have the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 packages coming our way, and we wanted to make sure that our folks had the maximum authority that they might need to purchase technology or make infrastructure changes or buy connectivity for students and staff. And so this year we'd like to budget our cash to a more conservative level, and so that's why that budget is going to experience a decrease this year. Virtual fund, we're planning for the increase in the total cap on that program, and so that is that requires us to budget an extra $1.8 million in the virtual fund. Bond and interest, as I stated, we are going to pay off a series a little bit early to pass on some tax savings, and so we're seeing a large increase in that fund as well. Food service, again, due to that federal reimbursement for all kids eating for free, they have an additional $18 million. Federal funds is where our ESSER funds live, and so those are the one-time monies that we get to plan over the next 2 to 3 years, and so that fund is seeing an increase of over $100 million. And our special education fund is budgeted $3.8 million over last year. This slide is always my favorite. I love seeing everyone in the district's efforts come down to this pie chart. This year, we are budgeting 87.4% of all of our operations funds directly in the classroom. And you can see by that inner circle, all of those pieces that connect to that red inner circle, those are hitting our students directly. This is, that final culmination of really seeing, as much as possible for me, being able to see the budget at work in our staff and students' hands. And the remaining pieces are things like my salary and you need me. So you have to have HR, you have to have payroll, you have to have a budget department. And so the remaining percentages are just things that you have to have in normal business. So this is the kind of the final pieces that we get to put together, and this is very exciting to bring this information to you all tonight. So this evening, we would like to establish our public budget hearing and revenue neutral rate hearing. So we've only had to previously do a budget hearing, and with the new legislation, we have 2 hearings that we have to cross off our checklists. We get to do them concurrently. So we would like to establish August 23rd as our, and I realize this says 2021, August 23rd of 2021, for those 2 hearings. Also, there is a requirement that we post all of these documents onto the district's website. And so right on the homepage, there's a link to the district budget, and you can get directly to the notice of hearing as well as the revenue neutral rate forms on the district's budget website.
Thank you, Addie. Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2. With this decrease in the mill levy, can you tell me how much potential savings that is for taxpayers?
You know, I had a feeling that you would ask me that, and that's the one thing I didn't calculate. So there are so many numbers in my head right now, I won't pretend to be able to spit out $3 or $4, but it would probably be somewhere in that range.
Okay,
for
so
every
there is
$100,000 of
so there is going to actually be a savings as opposed to that reduction, kind of offsetting the increase in.
So it's not, they won't experience a property tax savings. While we reduced our mill, their home went up in value. So
so this will just kind of
it will level it
offset some
out.
of that.
It will level it out.
Okay, well, that's better. That's better than nothing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
And Addie, my question was, the 87.4% of this budget going directly to support students, is that comparable to last year? I know it was high last year as well, but this 87.4 seems even better.
It is. Last year we were at 87%, so we were able to somehow we became even more efficient and are shoving even more money into our classrooms. So, and that is to all of your efforts.
Well, and the efforts of the public and the effort of this board, so thank you. And the
Yes.
effort of the staff, thank you. Ben?
Ben Blankley, District 1. Sometimes I get like constituent input about how, well, you have such a big budget in the schools. What do you spend it on? Do you spend it on stuff or people? Can you speak to that?
Sure, absolutely.
What's the majority of our funds going towards?
We, year over year, spend about 75% of our budget on staff, including their salaries and benefits. The remaining portion, the largest item that we purchase that is not salaries is our transportation contract, and all the remaining pieces are, piddly in comparison. We spend our money on our people, on our teachers, in our classrooms with our kids, and that's always our top priority. So,
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Definitely a people's business we are in. I move that we approve the publication of the 22 fiscal year budget notice of hearing for the annual for August 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Stan, seconded by Julie. Motion carries 7-0. The next step.
I
Excuse me.
voted wrong. I wanted a yes, so I pushed the wrong button. So yes, it is 7-0. If you could, can we do a way to correct that?
It's at the president's discretion.
Definitely, I know Julie's situation on that, so yes. Motion carried.
I apologize.
No, I've made the
Pushed the wrong
I've made the same mistake. Motion carries 7-0. Now, if you had come to me yet tomorrow and said, I want to change my vote, I probably would not have accepted that. Thank you, Addie.
Thank you.
Yeah, I even seconded it, and then I pushed the no.
Patrick, second item, please. Next item, please.
Next item, under Finance, call for redemption of 2013A outstanding bonds.
Dr. Thompson, if you want to introduce this topic and may have Addie come back up again.
I forgot we had this put under a presentation for this evening. So
Yes.
I talked about this briefly in our budget presentation. So we have the ability to call our 2013 series bond as of October 1st. And this allows us to pass along a savings of about $700,000 to taxpayers. And so we're just excising that ability to do an early payoff and requesting the authority from you all to do that this evening. So.
And this saves us how much again?
$700,000.
Okay, the sheet says 890,000.
The last number that I looked at was 700,000. I can certainly confirm that for you. This item, again, if you recall 2 weeks ago, this was not in our budget plan, and now it is. So I can certainly double check that for you.
I'm sure it is $890,250. That it was a substantial savings, and I appreciate the staff's willingness to continually to look at these type of items to save us money. And this is definitely something that is going to save us a lot of money for the near future. That is a substantial number. Julie?
Stan, you're saying exactly what I wanted to say. I really appreciate Susan and you, Addie's work on this to always keep your eye on this so that we can potentially give savings to the district. And $890,250 is a big sum. So I just really appreciate your work and think this is great to be able to do this so that we can save that interest. So thank you.
And I just want to comment to say that this was a directive that was given to us by the board. All of you have given us direction to be able to continue to look at ways to decrease the costs and for our taxpayers and in any other efficient ways we can operate. And we've continued to do that over the last few years underneath your leadership. So I just want to say thank you all for your leadership and guidance as it relates to our budget.
So with that said, I would make a motion that we approve the item.
I second it.
Moved by Julie, seconded by Ernestine. Take the recommended action. And that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Addie. Next item, Patrick.
Next item, under Miscellaneous, Superintendent's Report.
I will be very brief. I just want to welcome back our staff members. They are back. And welcome to all of the new teachers to the WPS family that we welcomed a couple, well, I don't know when the days are all smashed together, but we want to just welcome folks because I know that have heard a lot of them talk about all of the wonderful opportunities they had to decompress over the summer, which I'm very excited that they had the opportunity to do so. But we welcome everyone back. Our custodians over the summer, I want to say thank you to them for working very hard and making sure that we have wonderful, beautiful buildings to come back to. So Luke, thank you for you and your team, and Fabian and all of the purchasing teams for continuing to make sure that we have everything that we need to have in order to start back to school. And so with that being said, I will close my remarks, but all of it is around being very thankful for the staff that we have returning and the work that we'll be able to do this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Next item.
Next item, under Miscellaneous, Board of Education Report and Requests.
Ron, any reports?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Hernandez, Mrs. Tolbridge, Mr. Truehart, Mrs. Bison, Mr. Bustos, and Mr. Filippi for the tours this week of all the buildings, and hopefully go see the rest of the buildings. And see what all the preparations are looking like, and everything's really looking good. Just thank you to all the staff.
Thank you, Ron. Ernestine?
Well, I just echo what the superintendent said. I just am so excited about all those new teachers that are coming. Some of them are brand new to teaching, and I'm just excited with them for the brand new to teaching. And you should know that the board is available. You can email us at any time, and we will listen to you. We are cheering for you. That's all.
Thank you, Ernestine. Ben?
Ben Blankley, District 1. Inside a classroom in a public school is the safest place for an American child to be. That remains true even during a pandemic. And so all of us at Wichita Public Schools, I can say proudly that we are ready, willing, and able to educate your children in an appropriate and safe manner. And we'll do what it takes to get through this school year, and I'm excited for it to start.
Thank you, Ben. Stan Reeser, District 4. I had the opportunity this summer to drop in on some sports camps and band camps, and it's almost a shame that this topic had to be discussed tonight, but it had to, because when you spend time with the students, they care about the school year starting. And we all should be excited about that, and we should all be there to help support them. And, you know, I think sometimes we get caught up in the adult portion of this business, but really it's the students out there, and they just want to know that we're going to be there to keep those doors open. And they are ready to go, and we are ready to go, and I know our staff's ready to go. So thanks for everybody who's made effort in that area. Cheryl?
Yeah, Cheryl Logan at large. I had the opportunity to go to the new teacher orientation where both Dr. Thompson and Stan made presentations or talked to the new teachers. But what an exciting time when we finally get to start another school year, even when we're still in a pandemic. And, you know, we will all of us will be out in buildings over the next week and a half or so to welcome kids back, welcome teachers back, make sure everything's going. We will be wearing our masks as we ask our staff to. This is truly a start of a new school year that's going to be exciting, and we're going to be able to catch kids up, and we're going to do all the things that we need to do because we know how to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Julie?
Julie Hedrick, District 2. It is exciting to be starting this year. Everyone on site. We all, as Board of Education members, we do this work voluntarily because we're committed to kids and because we're committed to public education. We all knew how important teachers were and how important school was, but I think the rest of the nation realized last year how important teachers are and how important school is. So it's thrilling to be going back on site, though I do commend the work of our teachers last year for the awesome job that they did with their remote learning and the extra work that they had to do because of the pandemic. But it is exciting to be back, everyone on site. And the only other thing that I want to say is that when I was doing my research today relative to a pandemic, I saw that there's that Sedgwick County Health Department is offering on the 10th, that's just tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes.
A vaccination clinic at 2418 East 9th Street. And as we've discussed tonight, the vaccine is the most effective tool that we have to stop the spread of COVID. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't yet been vaccinated to take advantage of the Sedgwick County Health Department's clinic tomorrow from 5:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. at 2418 East 9th Street.
Thank you, Julie. Mia?
I'm very excited for this school year. I am thankful for all the teachers, especially during summer school with my grandson. The IPS, that is so exciting to me. I have a niece that's in middle school, and I have a nephew now who is going to be in 9th grade. So I will be just all over them about it. I will probably drive them insane, and that's fine. And I also want to apologize to the Northwest principal. I promise I will get the graduation robe back to you really soon. I promise. I said, I'm going to bring it right back, and it's been months. I will get it back.
Thank you, Mia. Patrick, next item, please.
Next item, under miscellaneous, new business.
Seeing none, next item, please.
Next item, under miscellaneous, executive session.
Ben?
Ben Blankley, District 1. I move the board recess into an executive session for purposes of consulting with the board's attorney, who will provide advice on a matter concerning pending litigation pursuant to the Kansas Open Meetings Act exception as allowed under KSA 75-4319, and the board return from executive session to this room at 9:05 p.m.
Is there a second? Moved by Ben, seconded by Cheryl to move into executive session. Motion carries 7-0. Patrick, the board is returning from executive session. No action taken. Patrick, next item, please.
Next item, under miscellaneous, adjournment.
Ben Blankley, District 1. I move to adjourn.
Ron Rosales, District 6, second.
Motion to adjourn. Motion carries 5-0 with Hedrick and Crable absent. Thank you.